just briefly talking about our cultural exegesis stuff. There's 4 things that culture does.
Cultivates, transforms, explains.
Communicates? What?
Communicates is one.
Yes.
I said transforms last week. That's my bad.
Cultivates, communicates. Is it?
Hold on, don't tell me.
I'm looking for clues.
Aren't there 2 more C words?
No.
Okay.
Cultivate,
Revitalizes.
communicates, orients.
Orients. Reproduces.
So culture communicates deep meaning, deep narrative. Culture.
What's up, Chef?
Hey, Amy.
What's up, Amy?
The culture communicates a vision of the meaning of life. It orients, so it gives us a sense of direction. It reproduces, so it spreads its beliefs, its values, its ideas, its fashions from one group to another. And then culture cultivates, so it shapes our heart. It's almost like spiritual formation. It gives us that kind of formation. Culture does that. And so, of the last couple of weeks, we talked about an interpretive way of doing cultural exegesis. A method of interpretation that we use is a lot like biblical exegesis, which is world behind, of, and in front of the text. And there's some guidelines that you want to keep in mind when you try to do this. Try to comprehend a cultural text before you interpret it. So, in other words, when we're talking about Good Will Hunting, watch it. Don't just read the back of the box. When we're talking about Ben Rector's album, try to listen to it, or at least listen to some of it, so you have a point of reference besides what other people say. You can have an informed opinion. Identify what a culture is doing and what it's saying. So what might this be speaking to us? Consider the world behind, of, and front. Determine the power served by a particular cultural text. Seeks its world hypothesis or root metaphor, so get down to the meta-narrative that it's trying to get at. Be comprehensive, so give thick descriptions. Don't reduce it to, Good Will Hunting has too much language for me to like it. You know what I'm saying? Stuff like that. Don't just throw it out because it's not your cup of tea. Really engage it. What does it say about being a human? What faith maybe is it expressing, or a non-faith that it is expressing? And then finally, the last thing we do is try to locate it within the biblical narrative or into our faith. So instead of doing what we normally do, which is take things from culture and project our faith onto it, we're going to listen to culture first and see what it's saying to us. Maybe has something to do with our faith to begin with. So, that was weird. So Travis last week brought us the movie Good Will Hunting. And so last week I talked about the songs that I brought. And so what I wanted you to do is just to give us a little background information, so the behind the text stuff that you can think of. Give us of the text, so the movie, kind of synopsis of the movie, and then the meaning it has for you and why you felt compelled to bring it as your cultural text, as we say.
Well, behind the text, I think we talked about this last week, but Good Will Hunting was a movie that was written by Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. On the movie that I actually have, the DVD, there's some special features, and I watched, kind of like Matt Damon revisiting kind of that after a while, and basically it was pretty interesting. They were pretty much nobodies at that point. They didn't have much money. They didn't really have anything to lose, and so they decided they learned writing from one of their English teachers, I think. I forget where, but they really were good at it in school, and so they decided that they would try their hand at writing this, and they wanted it to be about kind of, where they grew up and that kind of thing, and wanted it to be as natural, I guess, as possible. And he said that he had no. They didn't think anybody would ever pick it up. He just, we were gonna write this movie for us. Just even if it's just a movie that sits on our mantle or something, is what he said. They wanted to write it, and so basically, it got picked up by this random. He's like a German producer. I don't know. His name sounds German. I don't know if he's German or
Gus
not.
Van Sant.
Yeah, Gus Van Sant. And interestingly enough, Robin Williams liked Gus Van Sant's stuff, and so that's actually how he found out about the movie. He had no idea who Matt Damon was. He had no idea who Ben Affleck was. In fact, he like had Gus like vouch for him. He's like, are these guys like the real deal, or like are they making a piece of crap, or is this like something good? Like can they act, kind of thing. And so Robin Williams was, that he didn't know anything about the two main actors in that, which I thought was pretty interesting because he just kind of did it because he liked the director and the script, of course. But that was kind of interesting. And then that role that he was in was also supposed to be. It could have been. Matt Damon said it. They could have been somebody like Denzel Washington or I forget the other person he said, but just kind of. That's a lot of background about the movie, but it just kind of, I thought it was interesting.
The guy who directed that you talked about picked it up. He did some other movies like, let's see, Finding Forrester. He did a movie called Elephant, which is about a school shooting. Milk, which came out not too long ago, Harvey Milk. So those were kind of the ones that stood out to me.
And also, that reminds me of one other thing. Shoot, I just had it. Something about him directing. Oh shoot, I just lost it. Can you say exactly what you just said again?
Milk?
No, like exactly. Something you read about him.
Yeah, he directed some other movies.
I'm trying to think of the
Finding Forrester.
Finding Forrester, Elephant, which is about a school shooting, and Milk.
Harvey Milk. Something about him as a. Something that I thought was interesting about Robin Williams again. Matt Damon actually auditioned to be in Dead Poets Society, which was like Robin Williams' big movie at the time. So he actually talked about how at the time that him and Ben Affleck were working at this theater, and like while they were writing this movie, and they pretty much had to, they showed that movie all the time, and they'd go watch it, and they thought about, I wish, it had been me in that movie, kind of thing. So I thought that was interesting that they ended up doing a movie with Robin Williams. And then I guess kind of the plot of the movie is an abused, he was abused as a child, but he's an adult now. He lives in Boston, Southie, and he does a variety of jobs that showed him, he's a janitor at MIT. He also apparently does some construction work on the side, but you find out he's a genius when it comes to math, and he solves problems that people have not been able to solve, and they're really easy for him. But he's obviously very emotionally detached from everything. So he ends up getting into a fight with some people who bullied him when he grew up. He goes out and just like walks up to him and punches him in the face and pretty much beats him up pretty good, and he gets arrested. And then he gets put in jail, and the professor at MIT, who realizes that he's the one that's been solving all these problems that he puts up, comes and bails him out of jail and says, you can be out of jail as long as you spend time with me doing math and go to a therapist. And so after like 4 or 5 therapists, he finds Robin Williams, and they kind of try to get to the root of his issues. All the while he's meeting a girl, trying to fall in love, but then still being detached emotionally. And eventually he gets through, or Robin Williams gets through to him, and that's kind of the plot. And then why I brought it was, I think it's really interesting. Well, first off, it's just one of my favorite movies. I don't really know why. I guess I just like the genre, just kind of like the drama. But then, too, I like what it focuses on, because I think it's an interesting topic, because it doesn't look at it from the standpoint of money, because normally you would think of something, like if he's a genius, he could go anywhere he wants, make all this money. But it really looks at it the standpoint of he's a genius in this, but just because he's a genius, does that mean he has to do something for the benefit of society, for the benefit of what it could help, other people do, or, is it about him doing that, or is it about him being able to live the way he wants, do what, go after what he actually wants to go after and what he thinks is important. And so I think that's a really interesting struggle, just because, like I said, it takes money out of it, and it's like, if you're really good at something, are you obligated to do it, even if you don't want to, even if you think it's stupid, or can you, go off and do your own thing and it be okay, be accepted? But I just thought that was an interesting kind of dilemma it deals with, and so that's why I like it.
Right. So we can just start talking about the movie, maybe parts of the movie that really we like, or maybe parts we don't like so much. So anybody that watched it, was there any parts of the movie that stuck out to you that you enjoyed or didn't like, I should say?
I like one of the parts I like is when all the guys, the main character and his brothers, went to a Harvard bar, and they went in there and were drinking some, and then one of the main character's friends goes over and tries to talk to one of there's a couple of Harvard girls, and he goes over to talk to him, and then this while he was doing that, then this other punk guy that's a Harvard student comes over and just starts bashing him and making fun of him and trying to make him feel stupid. And then Will came over and basically just kind of like showed him that he was like regurgitating like material, and that it wasn't, just kind of putting him in his place, which I thought was really cool. And I think that's a big reason I like the movie, is just because I think that's one of the main themes, is like loyalty, like, friends that will do anything for each other and stand up for each other, and that's one thing I like.
Yeah.
I think it kind of brings to the forefront like the old cliche of you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, because on the surface Matt Damon is this punk kid, poor, lives in a crappy apartment, is a janitor, and so he's the last person that you would think would be a math genius and able to solve all these problems, in a matter of minutes that takes like MIT professors, years to prove. I think that's a very interesting dynamic of the whole movie to me. I think that's one of the undertones that they try to bring out of it.
Yeah, I have two favorite parts, I guess, of the movie. One of them is kind of when Will is dealing with the fact that professor or MIT is trying to get him all these jobs, and is telling him, like, you're so smart, you can do all these things, you got to do this, you got to go for these jobs and all this stuff. And he says, he's like, this is very easy for me. Maybe I don't want to spend the rest of my life explaining how to do things to other people. And kind of like, to me, that's more like, not only just about that, but just like his whole life, I feel like he's been tried to explain himself to other people, and he's tired of doing that, doesn't want to have to explain himself to people. And so I thought that was a really interesting answer to that conversation. And then my other favorite part was Robin Williams' little like monologue thing he has on the park bench whenever he basically the first day he met Will as like his new like client or whatever, or patient, he came into his office and saw this painting and kind of judged what his life was like, like thought that, deduced from his painting that his wife basically cheated on him and left him, when the real case was she got cancer and died, and that was kind of the storm in his life. And he kind of goes on this rant about how, like how Will could quote him all this knowledge stuff but doesn't actually know what he's talking about because he hadn't lived it. And he says at the end, do you think I know everything about being an orphan because I read Oliver Twist? And I think that was a really good line, and it kind of just, solidified the fact that they had to talk to each other about each other's experiences because they really didn't know just from reading a book or something. So.
Yeah, I wrote that down as one of the things that I really liked about the movie, is that scene and how it kind of changed the relationship between them. And I think it was, I really enjoyed how it talked about not reducing someone to some sort of idea or some sort of knowledge that you can gain educationally, but people are more than that, they're deeper than that. They're not just definitions that you've read in a book or some sort of psychosis, or what I'm saying, like they're not that. There's so much more to a human being than that. I really did like that part a lot. I liked the part before that, which you left out, where Robin Williams chokes Matt Damon out like an MMA fighter.
Just another a quick side note about that. Once again, when Matt Damon was talking about the movie, he talked about how much Robin Williams he like showed up on the set and already knew all of his lines and was, so prepared. He was like, oh, he was so prepared. And he, really gets into his character. He said the first time they did that scene, he's like, after they cut it, he was like, can you like not grab so hard? He's like, I'm bleeding. He's like, he apparently like for real just like went after him right there. So I thought that was just a sidebar to that scene, but he was apparently pretty intense in acting in that scene as well. So.
Any other scenes or parts? Mo, I didn't mean to mute you, dude, so if you can unmute yourself, that would be great.
Yeah, that was rude. No.
I'm sorry, I was playing around and muted you. I was like, wait a second, I don't want...
No, I don't. I mean, I haven't seen the movie and I wasn't able to watch it this past week, so I apologize for not participating.
It's on Facebook if you want to watch it.
Okay.
Or the link to it, I should say.
Oh, a link to the movie? Okay, I didn't see that.
Really?
My bad.
In 3 parts.
Yeah, it's in 3 parts.
Is it on YouTube?
No, it's on some random dating website.
Yeah.
That's all it is. Any other scenes?
I thought it was kind of cool, the fact that, Matt Damon's character had to, he had to get, like approval to do what he knew he needed to do from his best friend. Toward the end, that scene where they're both at the construction site, they're leaned against the truck and everything, and Will is like, he's like, I'm never gonna leave Boston, and
Boston.
And and then Ben Affleck's character is like, he's like, if you don't leave Boston, I'm gonna effing kill you.
Yeah. Yeah, 20 years. If you're still here, I'm gonna kill you.
It was like his biggest, like Ben Affleck's character was like, wow, I look forward to every day when I go up and knock on your door, and you're just not there. No goodbye, no, just go. It's just neat. He's looking after his buddy, knowing what is best for him.
The interesting part about that to me, though, is, like, it's one of the reasons why I like the movie is because I think Ben Affleck's character in that moment is talking more about, you don't have to live in this situation. You're smart. You can get a better job. You can, get paid more, a lot more, live a lot better than we do. And that kind of comes out when he says, I'm going to wake up in 20 years and I'm still going to be doing this. Like it's not his job, like, and his abilities to him won't improve, but because Will is so gifted with his knowledge and all that stuff, then he doesn't need to be stuck in that. And Ben Affleck's like, you owe it to me, not to me here. But even when he eventually gets what he wants and goes to the door and he's not there anymore, he didn't leave to go get another job. He left to go find a girl. And so even though that, you could imagine that he eventually got a really good job and succeeded, but, like just kind of their ideas of what was leaving for the right reasons, leaving for what they wanted to do or what they felt like they needed to do, was just different, I think.
There were several instances in the movie that they made, I felt like commentary on education. Like there's one point where Will is walking around Robin Williams, I think it's Sean, his character's office, and he's looking at all these books, and he's like, you read all these? I love how people surround themselves with all these books when they could just, go rent them at a library and just spend these thousands of dollars on this stuff that you could get for free. I thought that was interesting, and I think that plays out throughout the movie too, with the difference between Matt Damon, who is so intelligent that he can soak up information very quickly, but the difference is he doesn't gain the experience of living it. He's got the head knowledge, he's got all that stuff, but he's very, very immature and not well learned when it comes to just life experience as far as healthy relationships and navigating those difficulties and really having to deal with emotions and deal with who you are. Like you can read about it in a book, but it's different when you live out those experiences. I thought him and his relationship with Skylar, who was Minnie Driver in the movie, was really interesting. And I don't know if I really liked the idea of he's going to drive out to Stanford and she's just going to be like okay with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, I mean, he twice basically just totally, and I know why he didn't, and I get why in the movie why that was a deal to him, because that was like the last barrier to cross, is being able to love another person because of the defense mechanisms that he built up. Granted, rightfully so, you get kind of a glimpse into his early life when he's talking to Sean about, him having to choose which thing his stepfather was going to use to beat him, and he was like, I picked the wrench,
Screw him.
Yeah, screw him, So you kind of get a glimpse of that, and so I understand that. But still, if I was, I think that was some deep hurt for her, So I don't know. You don't know that. Like, you know why he left, but it kind of leaves you up to assume that that's what's going to happen. And that sounds great in a movie, but I don't know if that's necessarily how that would have worked out. I think he would have probably had to, build some trust back up.
And not just thinking about that, like she probably learned more about him in that scene where he was like yelling at her right before he walked out, than like about because he mentioned the fact, he's like, you don't want to hear about how they put out cigarettes on me, or how this cut is not a scar. He's like, I was stabbed basically, and all this stuff. So he just like railed off all these things, right after saying, what if I get out there and you find out something about me that you didn't know, and then all of a sudden it changes things, so it's just kind of like.
But on the flip side of that, I also think that love is deeper sometimes than those kinds of issues, and I think she did a really good job of portraying that. Like, you could tell that she was upset and that she wasn't a big fan of what had taken place, but she still wanted to communicate that she loved him because she does. And I think that that's, kind of maybe one of the parts of the movie that love is deeper than, all this messed up stuff that happens in our lives. And I had one more scene that I really enjoyed. I really liked the movie, but there was this other scene where Sean, I think the professor's Gerald, is that his name?
Jerry or something.
Yeah. They're arguing in Sean's office about Will. And it's that conversation I feel like friends have about other friends and parents have about their children, about this wasting their potential versus allowing them to heal and learn on their own. And, you got Sean who feels like, Will's not ready for all of that, and Gerald who sees this great potential and thinks he's wasting it and how much he could contribute to life. And I think he might get a bad rap. Like, I feel like at first he's doing it for selfish reasons, but towards the end I feel like the professor's more or less just feels like it's wasted potential. Like, if he was that intelligent, like the things he could have done, like how dare he abuse that, especially after all I've done. Like, I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing.
And he kind of he does it again later in the movie, but there's that one scene where he first meets up with Sean at some bar, and he calls that bartender over there, and he's like, "Have you ever heard of Gerald such and such?" And he's like, No. And then he goes back to the bar, and he's like, "Have you heard of Gerald?" And he was just kind of proving the point that, as smart as I am, because he won that field medal or whatever, he's like, those people don't know who he is, and just how it's really not. It wasn't. I don't think it was as much about him, as one might think in the movie, just because he knows that it's not going to make him really look any better if Will succeeds, because it will be him.
Right.
I think the professor and Robin Williams' character, they had different thoughts about what success was. Like the professor kind of wanted Will to be more like him, and he was all about getting the medals and getting the attention and the awards. And Robin Williams is more like Will, and so you can kind of see just from the difference in their lives. Like, Robin Williams is just more happy. He's doing what he wants to do. He's helping community college kids. He's not as concerned about what other people think about him. And he just, that was one of my favorite parts of the movie, just their whole relationship between Robin Williams and Matt Damon character. It's just funny because he had been to 5 psychologists, and then they all just didn't give a crap about him. And then as much mean stuff as Will said to him, he could just tell that he needed help. He just took it and humbled himself and showed that he cared.
Well, first he choked him out.
Yeah.
Bring him back here next week. I'll do it again.
It was just neat seeing how much
I have a
the
feeling, I
cleverness
don't
was-
remember in school when I was doing psychology, I don't remember them telling us that technique.
Yeah.
Like, when a
I'm
patient,
right in it right now.
when a
I
patient
haven't learned
offends
that
you,
yet.
choke them out.
As he says,
Say, I will end you.
Yeah.
as he says, he's like, I just teach this stuff. I don't know. That doesn't mean I know how to do it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And that just made me think one other thing, just kind of from that. He comes in after that one interview he has, with that government agency, and he's like, that guy's like, the real question is, why should you not want to work here? And he's like, well, it's pretty tough, but I can take a stab at it,
And then he has
And he goes into this long spiel. He's like, so at the end of the day, I might as well shoot my buddy, and all this stuff. And then Robin Williams says, his problem is he thinks of every negative thing that could happen 10 miles down the road, going one direction, and that's something that he finally is able to do by leaving and going out to Stanford or wherever California, is because he already knows that there's things that could go wrong, but he's went anyway. So
yeah, that's true. So I was thinking that we could talk about? What kinds of themes come up in the movie, or things that you take away from it that you think it's speaking about or speaking to?
Class and education.
Mm-hmm. I think loyalty and trust are brought up a lot.
Like faith. Like when he was like, trying to figure out who he should trust and who, just believing that what they were saying was leading him in the right direction.
I'd say fear of the unknown comes up a lot.
I think, it's a really neat dynamic because we're so used to people grouping themselves with people who are like-minded or who are like them, and it's such a contrast between Matt Damon's character and all his buddies or his brothers, who don't think like him, they don't have that capacity, but yet they get along very well. And I like that idea of friendship, that you don't have to be on the same level, you don't have to have the same interests, but you can still, be close. And, one of the most important things that gets said to Matt Damon's character is not from all these super highly intelligent people, but it's from his best friend that's just talking to him about the truck, And he says something more profound that really gets him across the, or pushes him past his boundaries, And in his own way, he communicates it by telling him to kill him. But
and that's just off that point. Like whenever the professor and Sean were having that argument at the end, he says professor calls him I don't know why he hangs out with these monkeys or whatever.
Yeah,
and he said
retarded gorillas.
Yeah, he said, well,
Totally gorillas.
He said have you thought about why he hangs out with them? He's like, because at an instant, any one of them would take a bat to his head, basically. That idea of standing up for him regardless of what happened. So,
And that was kind of brought to the forefront too, like when you were mentioning that fight that they got into with that that childhood bully of his.
Yeah.
The shortest guy out of the bunch. He's like, I'm not getting out of the car, and he's like, if you don't get out of the car, I'm going to beat you up myself. So, he's like, I'm not getting out of the car, and so it's like everybody having your back no matter what, and nobody questioned it.
They didn't think about it. They just hopped out.
Right, they just hopped out of the car. It's like, well, we're going to beat up these people, and
which isn't necessarily the best.
No, but
I got your back.
But it's
Travis, you're going to war. I'm going to war.
Yeah, but it speaks to that that sense of loyalty.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. It for better or for worse.
Yeah.
They weren't really concerned about those things. They were just concerned about what was happening. So even if it was bad, it mattered. They were going to jump right in it with them. Any other themes that come up from the movie that you think about?
I think nurturing.
Okay.
Just because it was obvious that Jerry character and Sean, they both had Will's best interest in mind, and they want to nurture him. Sean wants to help him break down those barriers that are holding him back, and Jerry wants him to realize his full potential and what he could do and what he can accomplish if he wanted to.
Kind of another thing, like another theme would be just kind of the weight of like being gifted at something. I think is a theme, and it's not just easygoing if you're, that movie shows that even if you're, biggest genius, it's not. Doesn't mean your life's easy. Doesn't mean your path is laid out. It doesn't mean you're gonna want to take it. Or there's a lot of responsibility and a lot of weight in every decision you make when you're that gifted or that smart or et cetera, or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's one of the major themes I got from it. I didn't know how to word it, but now that you said it, is this whole idea of you're talented or you have a unique gift and the expectations that are placed upon you because of that by other people.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is a universal truth, and I see that in lots of people's lives where they have this talent, they have this gift, or they're just really book smart or something like that, and people expect them to follow down a certain path and follow that lead when, though they might be gifted at it, doesn't mean they're passionate about it or that's their desire. I see that rampant in lots of people's lives. That's a very difficult thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. That's Good Will Hunting in 30 minutes or less. We just reduced that movie to 30 minutes.
30 minutes. Yeah.
Can we talk about the name? What about the name?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Talk about it.
I don't know. Is there any? His name's Will Hunting.
Good Will Hunting, like hunting for good, like.
Yeah,
is he good at heart? Is he a good Will Hunting, or is it a hunt for goodwill?
Yes.
Or both?
Both.
Is it a double entendre?
Say it right. E-Ray has spoken. He says it's both. Double entendre.
Well, then we're done.
Yep. That's all that needs to be said.
He's a good person, and we're hunting for goodwill around there.
Yeah.
Boom. All right. Jaina brought to us last week the cultural text of Ben Rector's album, Walking in Between. And so, Jaina, if you have any of this knowledge or information that you can share with us, that would be great.
Sure.
The behind the text of the actual album and meaning for you.
So I first started listening to Ben Rector like just the day before I went. He opened for Need to Breathe a couple years ago at the Ryman, and so I went and I was able to see that show and fell in love with his stuff then. And then I saw him in October where he headlined the Ryman and just completely fell in love with the music and the album that I hadn't listened to yet. So the music really is what draws me in first. But as the more you listen to it, the more you listen to the lyrics. And so for me, the Walking in Between, yeah, there's a few love songs on there that are really good that I love. But for me, it's the ones that were more focused on life. Sailboat and
Something.
let me get out my phone so I can look at the song name. Walking in Between. So Sailboat, Making Money, Follow You, If You Can Hear Me. Some of those lyrics, especially, I'll get to that in a minute. Some of the lyrics, sometimes the devil sounds a lot like worry, treading a well-worn path into my soul. And later on in that song, sometimes the devil sounds a lot like Jesus, making me feel like I'm not enough or something along those lines. And then Making Money, Travis talked a little bit about that last week, but it's just all about our focus as a society on making money, and that's what we focus on, but that's not what's important at the end of the day. for me, and life keeps moving on. Even sorry, first line of the song. I'm thinking.
Is it truth? Life sucks sometimes.
Yeah, there we go. That's it exactly. Yes. Life sucks sometimes. For me, when I started listening to that album, it was it was last fall, last October through November. It was before I was in this group, and I live in Marion, Arkansas. I don't have any friends in the area, and so I would be listening to this album. Then I had it on shuffle and just played them all in the right order. I'm just like, oh, yeah, he's speaking to my soul right now. And I had that moment, like, but then Follow You comes on. I was talking about following God, and that's the most important thing. Like, you're going to go through this crap. And then I had another, it was January, February, but this is mushy crap, so. I was listening to Sailboat again. Like, in the fall, I was listening to Sailboat, talking about feeling so alone all the time, and that's what I was feeling at that moment. And then I listened to it again January, February after I'd gotten involved with you guys. After I came in December, and I'm like, I don't feel this anymore. Life doesn't suck anymore. I'm really excited. So, yeah, I mean, that's what it is for me. It really, and it still speaks to me a lot. Like, I just, this is one of the albums I go to when I'm having a rough day. And then, listen to Follow You, or Follow You. And If You Can Hear Me, life keeps moving on.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't heard any of the songs. Can we get Morgan to look up the lyrics and sing one of them for us? Is that cool?
Good one for us.
we would significantly get more views if you did that for us.
Mo's a good singer.
He is good. Come on, Mo.
That's what I'm saying. We get
Not acapella though.
not acapella.
Excuses.
Gotta have that movie.
I've got the choir behind me.
So anybody else who might have listened to some of the songs or listened to the album, any things that stuck out to you, any of the songs?
Well, it was definitely No Pianos Become the Teeth. I'll tell you that much right now.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying. Just observation.
You are right. It is nothing like one another. You are correct.
I like the just kind of he has a way of making just the way he says things in a song just kind of funny to me. Especially that here's the truth, life sucks sometimes. I mean, that's pretty blunt, and of course everybody would agree with that. But it's just kind of funny. I think he's good at making lines like that somehow not sound stupid in a song. Mm-hmm. However he does it, or just the music that's behind it or whatever. Even if I don't know, every time I hear that, I'm like, yeah, that's true. As opposed to wow, what a stupid line he's saying. Here's a that sucks sometimes. But I think he has a good way of doing that.
I think, these days, singer-songwriters are a dime a dozen. Everybody's a singer-songwriter these days. And something to me that I have a lot of respect for is somebody who has a really, really good voice. And Ben Rector is one of those people, you admire him for the gift that he has and the fact that he's willing to share it. He's not one of those dime a dozen singer-songwriters, and it also helps that his songs have meaning too. You know, so it's almost like, you know, perfect combo.
His cover of "I Want to Dance with Somebody" is so good.
I just have an appreciation of like people who have a good sound, like a good tone to their voice, and just
live.
yeah.
He's a good entertainer too. Like he's really good on stage.
And I talked about, like Jana said, I talked about this song last week. It's just, I heard it whenever I was thinking about the topic a lot. But the Money song, you know, he doesn't really answer any questions about it, which is kind of why I think why I like the song. Basically, one of the choruses, you know, like, I know that life isn't cheap and not all good things are free, but there's no too much and there's no enough, you know. And then at the end of the song, his last word that he says is, I forget what he says before, but basically, and his last line is, but we're fools for making money, kind of. But kind of at the end of the song, he's like, I don't really know why, or like, I know that I don't really think there's another way, or I don't know what that other way is around the fact that we need money and such, but you have to admit, we're fools for making this such a, you know, important thing in our lives. So I think that's, I like that he kind of ends the song that way, is that just not really, you know, knowing how to reconcile it. It's just a thing, and, you know, like, that's what we do, but you have to admit that we're dumb for doing it. Like, I don't know what else we would do about it, but something.
Well, I actually really dislike that song a whole lot, because I feel like that was the most privileged sounding song I'd ever heard, because he's obviously never had to go 6 days without eating or deciding to choose between gas and food, and I have, and that really ticked me off. Like, that song made me so mad the whole time, because I was like, no, the reason you make money is so you have to survive. I thought it was a really, he's not even that young. He's about a year younger than I am. But I was just like, that was a really privileged song. But he's been making music since his first year of college. And so, yeah, I totally disagree with that song.
I wish I would have brought the piece of paper that I had. I wrote notes down, and I didn't transpose all of them, but the note that I put on that song was privilege.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
it's privilege sounding.
He admits it. I mean, like in the song, he says, basically, he said, I forget what the exact line is, but basically, I write these love songs and people seem to buy them, and he's like, so I make money. Yeah. He's like, he understands that.
Yeah. No, I get it. I just think it depends on your ears where you're hearing it from. And
yeah, it's like, I don't know. Like, I understood. Yeah, money, you have to make money, but it's like he's obviously never had the problem of not having any money. Right. And that sort of really annoyed me. I was like, oh, that's such a, I guess I can see where it comes from, but it's the people who've never had to struggle who would write that kind of song. Like, I'm sure if he ever got into trouble, like, his family would stand behind him and help him out, but he's never had to apply for food stamps. You can tell by listening to that song. It just ticked me off so much. Like, I really tried to come at it as, like, cultural exegesis and not, like, judge him for that immediately, but, like, halfway through the song, I was like, oh, my God, I can't stand this song. So.
No, I think that's the hardest part about all this stuff is trying to engage stuff that, you know, in other avenues of your life, if it was just, you know, you listening for enjoyment or you to just hear something, you would, you know, not listen to it, or you would turn the channel or turn it off or whatever. And that's kind of the point of cultural exegesis. And I understand it is very difficult sometimes to do that. But I heard you on that song. There was 2 songs that really stood out to me as far as that really kind of spoke to me and it had some sort of meaning. And granted, I only listened to it once. So it's not like I have these repeated listens where things would jump out to me normally that wouldn't on a first listen. But just listening to it intently, the song "I Like You," there are way too many love songs, and I think they've got them all wrong because it's not the mountaintops, it's the walking in between.
Yeah.
And I like walking next to you. I really like that line. I like that lyric. I like that idea that we get this wrong idea about love and how it's always supposed to be this glorious, magical firework kind of thing, but that's not it. It's about all the journey, and I think that applies to lots of stuff. But I really like that line in that song, which is funny because it is really a cheesy love song. So outside of doing this, more than likely I would have heard like the first line and be like,
I like
I'm done. But I'm glad that I was doing this so I could listen to it intently. And then I really liked "If You Can Hear Me," not necessarily the whole song, but that lyric that you pointed out about sometimes the devil sounds a lot like Jesus telling me I'm not enough, and I don't believe it, but I can feel it. And I think that's so true when we talk about faith and like the burden sometimes we place upon people when it comes to following Jesus and how we teach them to follow, as if, oh, you're a dirty, rotten sinner, and he died on the cross, and, every time you sin, it's like you're nailing them back up there, and like, you know what I'm saying? Like, over years, eventually that's gonna weigh you down a little bit. And Jesus doesn't sound very freeing when you put it like that. So I really like that line in that song a lot. I thought it was really, really powerful, really good. But those are the two kind of stood out. I didn't listen to the "Summertime" song. I just saw the title. I didn't listen to it, so I don't know that one. But all the rest of them I listened to. But those were the two that really kind of stood out to me the most. And I liked how the album itself, just listening to it in its entirety, it has a nice flow to it in the sense of, like, there's kind of these love songs that have a little more deeper meaning than just like, I love you, blah, blah, blah. And then, but there's also these introspective songs about how he's feeling in that moment. And then, and then it comes back to, I would assume "Summertime" is about how good summertime is. So it's cool that like the title of the album actually has a lot to do with how the album's constructed. It's all about this in between of the highest of highs, which is loving someone and being in love, and then feeling completely lost and alone, and like that being a part of the whole album. I thought it was cool. Any other songs or anything that stood out to or stands out to you? All right. Well, let's talk about meaning really fast. What kind of meanings kind of float out of this?
Life sucks sometimes.
I think regardless of whatever his background is, I think that there is a lot of nostalgia that he longs for in his music. He talks a lot of his songs are, at least,
what's the song about being 16 with the window down?
Ordinary Love.
Yeah,
but
that's the first song. Yeah.
Like, and then there's another one I think where he just talks about, he kind of longs for, even though, even throwing whatever his background is, because regardless of what it is, I think he still longs for whatever his past was a little bit in some way, and I think that's something that all of us do.
Yeah, we all have moments in our life that we really treasured, and feel like it would be nice to appreciate them again. Or
exactly.
Yeah. I put "Love" down.
Where'd you get that from?
Pretty generic.
Definitely not
Pretty generic.
Generic.
Any other thoughts on meaning? Yeah. All right. So next week, looking at the stuff that people brought, we have the Book of Mormon soundtrack. We have the Sorcerer's Stone, the Harry Potter first book. We we have Diary of a Mad Black Woman, and we have A Heartbreaking Work of Staggering Genius. So it's 2 books, 1 movie, and then just some songs. So I was trying to figure out the best way to do this to space it out. So those of us who are going to actually read the books have time to actually read a book instead of just next week we're going to talk about 2 books. So I didn't know if we wanted to do the Book of Mormon next week and with either Harry Potter, because some of you, it seemed like a lot of you had read that, and it's only like 320 page-wise, and it's a children's book. I assume it's not that hard to get through.
No, it's an easy read.
Or we could do like Diary of a Mad Black Woman and Book of Mormon songs, and then do 2 books, like 1 book and then the next book. So I don't know how you want to structure it. I feel like the best way to do it is probably to do Book of Mormon and Harry Potter next week, and then do Diary of a Mad Black Woman and Heartbreaking Work of Staggering Genius the next. Does that make sense?
Sounds good.
So I looked it up. A Heartbreaking Work of Staggering Genius on Amazon is about $8. So I'm going to order it. If any of you want me to order it, it's $8, or you can get it on your own, figure it out, find it, borrow it from Amy. She's read it. Are you done reading that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so she's done. So you borrow a copy if you want. But it's pretty cheap, so throwing it out there. And then I'm not going to buy a Harry Potter book. I assume someone that I know has the Sorcerer's Stone, so I'm hopeful that I'm going to find
Have you not read Harry Potter?
Not
I haven't
one
either.
single.
You can go to my house and get it, Nathan, if you want to. I have
What?
it. And you can go to my house and get it. Or go to the MUS library. You can go hang out with my mom.
There you go.
You borrow it.
I figured I could tweet out to one of my
I
youth.
got that book.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Oh, also, it's an Oscar award-winning book on tape, so you could borrow somebody's book on tape if you don't want to actually read it. It was
Like cassette, like cassette tape,
well, CD, something audible,
8-track.
but it is a really good book you can listen to. The
Yeah.
guy who does it is genius.
Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, you could do that also if you wanted to. So anyway, let me know if you want me to order a book. I can order it with mine. If not, then good luck. So next week, Book of Mormon songs, which you can just look up the Book of Mormon on YouTube, and it's going to have all the songs. I would suggest to do that in a place that you're okay with listening to that. Maybe or with headphones.
Yeah,
That would probably be a good idea. Boom. Close my
That's
door.
what I'm going to be doing.
And then Harry Potter, if we can knock that out by next week, that's great. If not, it's okay. I got to knock it out so I can have a point of reference. So I'll be reading Harry
You're going to
Potter.
be reading like all of them after you read the first one.
I
Nate-
doubt it. I highly
Nate
doubt
does not want to.
No.
This is pulling teeth to get him to read it.
it.
But he's gonna do it.
I want to do it.
He's gonna.
I want to do it.
First chapter or 2 is slow, but then after that, the whole rest of the series is
That's what I tell people about the Bible. Once you get past Genesis,
That's Leviticus and Numbers.
yeah, once you get to Revelation, man, it's a hit.
What is it? Genesis, Exodesis.
All right, so and then so next week, what did I say? Book of Mormon and Harry Potter, and then the next Diary of a Mad Black Woman and A Heartbreaking Work of Staggering Genius. Diary of a Mad Black Woman. I haven't looked online to see if you can find that like I found it.
You can borrow mine.
But
Imlot's seen about how many times Imlot?
Oh, I've seen it a bunch.
Imlot's got it, so you can borrow it.
I pretty much have the movie memorized, so.
There you go. And then, like I said, if you want me to order a book, let me know. All right, anything we should pray about this week? Anything going on?
Charlotte.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No.
Charlotte's one of her best friends named Courtney that lives in Oxford. She's divorced and has kids, and she's like having a lot of financial trouble. So Charlotte said that we should pray for her.
What's her name?
Courtney.
Keep praying for Liva's mom, CC.
Yeah,
She got moved to rehab today, so
Yeah.
that's one step closer of getting out. So sounds like things are progressing steadily, not fast, but steadily.
Yes, they had to talk tonight.
So
She what?
A talk.
She had a talk?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Like at school or something?
No, not at school actually. For her treatment. She's a trial for her treatment.
Oh, okay.
It's a trial for treatment, and she gets to say words about her treatment, and
Who'd she say it to?
the treatment people at the place in Oakland,
Oh,
California.
okay. Cool.
And Alex and her are doing it tonight actually. It's for a walk actually, for this month, next month actually. Get rid of the treatment, so that's good.
Yeah. Anybody else?
My house hunt and home moving and all that. Churches and
Yeah, starting a new job soon enough.
Happening quick.
it's happening
I
very
think
quick.
think we're gonna be good very soon at church as far as getting help and getting that worked out. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
Very pumped about that. Hiring Morgan as our Latin teacher.
Yes.
Personal Latin tutor for the youth group. You know? There's not even extra money in the budget for that. Not.
Anything else? All right. Somebody pray for us, please.
I will do it.
Thank you.
God, thank you for tonight. Thank you for letting us experience you in a different way besides the way we normally do, by just looking at the Bible and reading it. And just thank you for the opportunity and just the availability of our culture around us as a tool to not only just have fun with it, but also to really look into why it means something to us, and looking at the deeper meaning of our culture and what it's saying. Please be with us, and in these moments that we engage some of these things that we don't necessarily like or agree with, or whatever it may be, but just let us appreciate the opportunity to really look at what they're saying, because they are popular for a reason. And just help us kind of learn something about you, learn something about ourselves through looking at them these next couple of weeks. And we lift up all these prayer requests, and even those that have not been lifted up to you by word. Just please, be with all of us, and let your peace be upon us, and whatever happens, and let us all just know that we have a community here that cares about us and that is here for us, and just let us know that with you we're never alone, and that we're also just not alone with the support group around us. And just please be with us for the rest of this week. In your name we pray, amen.
Amen.
Yeah.
Good to